So Lando Norris has taken pole position for the first race of the season, and what a qualifying session that was. And if you missed it, here's what happened. So Q1 started off with Ollie Bearman getting an engine issue with his gearbox. I don't think he could find fourth gear, and so far Bearman's had a really poor start to his full-time F1 career. He crashed in practice 1, which compromised practice 2 for him, as he couldn't compete in practice 2 because Haas had to repair his car. He came back out for practice 3, and again he crashed it. And then, to make things worse for Ollie Bearman, in qualifying, his engine broke. So not a good start to Ollie Bearman's full-time F1 career at all. To be honest, I think this could really badly affect his confidence. However, we all know how good Ollie Bearman can be because of what we saw from him last season, so hopefully it doesn't affect his confidence too much. Lawson then went out in Q1, which could be the start of the Red Bull second driver curse for him. I really hope not, because Lawson is such a good driver. However, we've always seen, I remember in 2019, Pierre Gasly got knocked out in Q1 for his first Red Bull session, and then it happened to Albon when he started to go downhill at Red Bull. He kept getting knocked out in Q1, and obviously we all know with Sergio Perez, he also got knocked out in Q1 quite often last season. To be fair to Liam Lawson, he hardly had any running in practice 3, which probably compromised him going into Q3. I think he had an engine issue. I didn't watch practice 3, so I don't know too much about that. He's also been running a different specification of a front wing compared to his teammate Max Verstappen, so that probably didn't help him too much, as I'm guessing that was the slower version of a Red Bull car. But like I've said many times before, we all know how Red Bull can be. If you have one bad performance, they're going to be straight on the back of you, and they're obviously going to be straight on the back of Liam Lawson. Antonelli also got knocked out in Q1, and that's more because he damaged his car with the floor, which the curbs in Australia, they're brutal. If you go over a few too many of the curbs, you've got to damage your floor quite badly, and the floor is the main part of your F1 car. That's where all the downforce comes from. That's where most of the lap time comes from. And we heard Ted Kravitz saying on commentary that Antonelli was probably costing himself 3/10 down per straight, and in Australia that's not what you want at all. In tracks like Monaco or Singapore, that won't compromise you too much, as most of the lap time is found through the corners. However, Australia has got so many long straights. Basically the whole of the second sector is just one long massive straight. So to be losing 3/10 per straight, it's obviously going to cost you way too much lap time around Australia. So the second Antonelli damaged his floor, that was it. He was out in Q1. There's nothing else he could do. I also thought Gabriel Bortoleto was very impressive, knocking out Nico Hulkenberg in Q1 in his first ever race. The Kick Sauber looks a little bit more of a good car compared to last season. I mean, at least it was competitive. There wasn't too many times last season when they got out of Q1, so to get into Q2 in the first race of the season is very good for them and very good for Gabriel Bortoleto. However, in his final run in Q2, he nearly put the car in the wall. He did really well to keep it out of the wall, and it's a really good save. And obviously, you expect these rookies to make these mistakes. It's their first ever race. They're not too used to F1 cars, apart from Liam Lawson and arguably Ollie Bearman. But for Bortoleto to get into Q2 in the first place with the Kick Sauber was very impressive, and you can only put your hats off to him for that. Again, I thought Yuki Tsunoda was very impressive in Q2. He got through into Q3. He's out-qualified Liam Lawson, which is something Red Bull might be looking at and maybe thinking, should we have put Tsunoda in that car? But it's only the first race of the season, so let's not read too much into that yet. And then at the end of Q2 on Hamilton's final run, he spanned the car, I think at the exit of turn 10 or turn 11, which would have compromised many other drivers, as Hamilton was one of the lead cars in Q2. Loads of other drivers were behind him. Because of Hamilton's spin, DRS got disabled, and one of the DRS straights is right before where Hamilton spanned, so that's obviously going to compromise so many other drivers, because DRS probably gains you about 2/10 of lap time per lap. And for non-F1 fans watching, you may think 2/10 isn't really that much, but in F1 2/10 is worth a lot of time, especially in the midfield where it's really close, and every single fraction of a second matters towards your lap time. But at the start of Q3, Piastri went really wide on his first run, and the second to last corner, Lando Norris got his lap time deleted and Max Verstappen had provisional pole. Now, I thought Max Verstappen looked unstoppable today. He was definitely out driving that Red Bull. I thought he was really impressive. And at the start of Q3, I was thinking, Max is definitely getting pole here. However, on the second runs, McLaren absolutely nailed it. Oscar Piastri then took provisional pole away from Max Verstappen. However, Lando Norris just about pipped into P1. For me, I think Piastri looked a little bit disappointed. He didn't get pole position in his home race, and he could hear the roar in the crowd when he did get provisional pole. However, I still think he's going to be really happy with P2. Albon was really impressive in the Williams, and Williams were really impressive in general. They've obviously made a massive improvement with the car this season. I think Albon's going to be really happy without qualifying Carlos Sainz in his first race. I think just by the fact Williams got 6th in qualifying, and I think Sainz was P8 or P9, it's obviously shown a massive improvement within that team, and they've made massive strides forwards. I think Williams are a team on the up and definitely one to watch out for this season. They could even sneak in a podium in a few races, you never know. I think they've got one of the strongest driver lineups on the grid. Carlos Sainz is definitely one of the best drivers. Alex Albon's another really good driver who's done really well to revitalise his career after what happened at Red Bull in 2021. Not 2021, 2020. However, what was really more impressive was Yuki Tsunoda getting 5th. I think you've got to say Tsunoda was the star and the surprise of qualifying. To get 5th in the RB is not an easy thing to do. However, the RB did look like a really stable car and it really suited the Australian Grand Prix track. And again, I said this in a previous video, Tsunoda's got a point to prove this season, and so far it looks like he's proven that point, that he's a really good driver, and Red Bull maybe should have put him in that car instead of Lawson. In practice 1 and practice 2, Ferrari looked really strong, and I thought they were favourites for pole position yesterday. However, today they looked like they were really struggling. Hamilton obviously had that spin out of turn 10, which compromised everyone in Q2. They seem to be heating up their rear tyres way too much in the final sector, which obviously compromises you because the final sector is just full of corners. And if your tyres are getting overheated, then you're going to have no grip and the car's just going to be oversteering all the time. From the sector times, Ferrari weren't actually that too far off in sector 1 and sector 2. However, just because of the fact they were overheating their rear tyres, then they were never going to have a chance at pole position because that's just full of corners. So much oversteer for the drivers to deal with, it's never going to happen. And to round things off, Verstappen got 3rd, Russell got 4th. That's going to be very interesting tomorrow because the hatred between them two drivers doesn't seem to have died down at all after last season. I think if it rains tomorrow, then Verstappen could be the favourite because we all know how good Verstappen is in the rain. McLaren need to make sure that they don't bottle the start like they usually do. As long as they lead 1-2 into the first corner, then they should be fine, but watch out for Verstappen. Anyway, there's just a quick rundown of what happened in today's qualifying session. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of qualifying and who you think's going to win tomorrow's race. Subscribe to the channel for more F1 content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.